With the return of ReZero Season 3, which will mostly be covering the plot of Arc 5 and 6, you can expect the series to start exploring and introducing more of the intricate world-building elements of the story, especially in regards to the power system. So in this video, I wanted to break down and go over the complex and diverse power system of the ReZero series to hopefully help you better understand how their world functions, because despite it looking somewhat simple on the surface, it's surprisingly detailed. Fair warning though, this video contains some minor spoilers for the series because of the terms that I might reference, so feel free to stop watching if you don't want any spoilers. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Now then, before I go into the power system of ReZero like the concept of mana and gates, we have to first talk about the fundamentals of the world, the element that basically allows everything to function, which is known as Od, the life energy that dwells inside of all living beings, something akin to a soul. However, unlike the conventional concept of souls found in other fantasy media, Od is actually a measurable aspect in the ReZero world, although not in a literal sense, meaning the amount found inside someone can vary from person to person, and is based on either the species of the individual or the size of the vessel. For instance, adult dwarves will have less Od than say a normal adult human on average, simply because of the difference in their body sizes and height, kind of like comparing a small box to a big box. So aside from being the life force of living things, Od also serves as a container for storing mana within someone, and it can even be used as a replacement resource for spellcasting, but because you're essentially consuming your own life force with every usage, it's not recommended outside of emergency situations. And in cases where you somehow depleted all your Od, you won't actually die from it, rather it was vaguely described in a light novel that you simply end up no longer being yourself, which according to the author, meant that you could either end up becoming crippled or be left in a vegetative state. With that being said, it's time to talk about gates because similar to the concept of Od, gates can be found in all the living beings within the ReZero world, and Subaru was actually granted one when he crossed into this world. But what exactly are gates? Well, if we consider the Od as the heart of a living being and is used to store mana, then gates are like the lungs, responsible for taking in mana found in the atmosphere and letting it pass through the body. And whether someone is able to perform magic or not will solely depend on the condition of the gates as well, because much like real organs, they can sometimes be defective or get damaged by negligence, although in most cases, people aren't capable of utilizing magic since they only have gates that are partly functional, and they need to have a fully open gate in order to cast spells. And Subaru is a notable example of having a defective gate, because in Season 1, due to overusing magic, the normal circulation process of his gate was now broken. He can technically still take in mana and store it, but he can no longer release it, meaning he could end up storing too much mana inside his Od, which will ultimately lead to his death from mana poisoning. A similar issue that Roseward A had faced in the past, and he was only cured thanks to Echidna healing him back in Season 2. Now that we covered the fundamentals of the power system, let's go over the topic of mana and what exactly is it. For starters, mana is an energy that exists all around the atmosphere, and it was said to have originated from the Old Laguna. But this mysterious entity not only produces mana, it also helps to filter and purifies used mana so that it can release the recycled mana back into the world, which is why the Old Laguna is sometimes referred to as the heart of the ReZero world. Of course, there are more backstory to the Old Laguna itself, but since the main topic is on magic and mana, I won't be going into this particular aspect of the lore, although I do want to point out that the Old Laguna also has something called the Corridor of Memories, where the souls and memories of the deceased will eventually end up so that they can be purified similar to mana. That said, in order for people to harness mana for magic, there are two methods. The first is the conventional one, where a person simply draws upon mana using their gates and then storing the mana inside their Od. Another method is through the use of external or artificial means, like forming a contract with a spirit and borrowing their gates as a conduit for taking mana from the atmosphere, although this is mostly used by people with defective gates, similar to how Subaru was able to start using the spell Minya after forming a contract with Beatrice. More on this later. But in addition to that, there's also something called the flow method, which is actually the most common way of harnessing mana by the average person, because there are surprisingly a lot of people in the ReZero world who aren't compatible or have the talent for spellcasting. And to explain the flow method, it's essentially the subconscious manipulation of mana inside the body, allowing the user to enhance their own physical capabilities, such as enhanced speed, reflexes, durability, strength, agility, or healing. There are some who can go even further with the flow method by using a skill called beastification, which, like the name implies, grants the user beast-like characteristics or outright transforming them into monsters, but in return their martial techniques and physical capabilities are greatly improved. That's why the flow method is normally used by warrior or fighter types, although mages or spirit art users are capable of using this technique as well. And since I mentioned spirit art users, let's go over what they are. So to explain, they are essentially a subset of magic users, and like the name implies, they rely on spirits to cast magic. But what exactly are spirits? While in a rezero world, spirits are entities given life by the old Laguna, and they are beings made of pure mana, but because of this, they often require something called an anchor in order to materialize their physical form, otherwise they will just disappear after their existing mana depletes. And in most cases, magic stones or crystals are used as anchors whereby spirits can simply return to once they reach the limit of their physical forms in order to replenish their mana. However, there are rare cases where more powerful spirits are able to use the living beings as their anchor, like how Trap served as the anchor of Malacrara in the ReZero Frozen Bonds movie. Furthermore, there are levels when it comes to spirits as well, so starting with the lowest denomination. We have lesser spirits that are basically just balls of mana, but as they gain more knowledge of the world and develop a stronger sense of self, they develop into quasi-spirits, now having the ability to comprehend words and to transmit emotions. And once they further accumulated more power, they are able to grow into spirits, and going beyond that point, they end up becoming greater spirits, which are considered to be extremely powerful beings, with Puck and Malacrara as good examples, although the former has taken the title of Great Spirit of Fire from the latter. Now, the reason this is important because depending on the level of the spirit, the conditions for a person to form a contract with them will be harder, as stronger spirits tend to be more arrogant and self-centered, or there are very specific requirements that needs to be fulfilled. For example, they might accept someone based on their personality, beliefs, strength, overall talent, or in most cases, the compatibility it has with the affinity of their chosen partners. And the reason for this is because contracts are often regarded by spirits as something sacred that carries great meaning for them, so they often look for someone that they like, especially for spirits that have greater awareness and sense of self, similar to how Subaru was able to form a contract with Beatrice despite not being that powerful. Regardless, once someone becomes a spirit art user, they are able to borrow the powers of their spirit, and the strength of the spell they are able to cast is dependent on the level of said spirit, and the only difference with mages is that the user simply draws mana from the atmosphere rather than from their old. In any case, when it comes to magic or spellcasting, the steps are simple. Gather the necessary mana using your gate, visualize the spell that you want to use, and finally use the incantations for said spell. For example, if you want to shoot a fireball, all you have to do is to say the words Algoa to help form the mental picture inside your mind, or just think about what a fireball looks like. However, there are individuals who are capable of performing voiceless incantations, but this is considered to be extremely difficult, with only the most talented mages being able to perform such a feat. And the reason is that there are actually different levels when it comes to spell incantations, which can either range from altering the destructiveness of a spell to outright changing the entire effects of it as well. So going from the lowest to the highest, these prefixes are L, Ul, and L, and it's likely due to the slight variations of the spell that make voiceless incantation more difficult, since having to conceptually differentiate between something like L Huma and L Huma would not be easy for anyone. Either way, another factor to pay attention to when using magic is the affinity of the user. It infuses the mana particles with the element that is associated with the user, such as fire, water, wind, earth, yin or yang. More on them in a bit, but most of the time, mages are only capable of wielding a single element since it's based on their compatibility. However, there are mages who are talented enough to wield multiple elements or even combine them from more unique spells, such as Rosewall L, who is considered to be the strongest mage in the kingdom of Lugunica. And one of his strongest spells was the Time Spoke magic, allowing him to cast multiple spells at the same time, which is extremely difficult considering that he would have to calculate the exact mana needed, visualize the spells he wanted to cast, concentrate on manifesting the spells, and then releasing those spells at his targets. And he has been known to have mastered until 6-fold magic, meaning he can cast 6 spells at the same time, although the only recorded instance of him using this ability was during his battle with Puck in the ReZero prequel story Bonds of Ice. Nonetheless, going back to the elements, like I said just now, we have fire, water, wind, earth, yin and yang, but unlike conventional portrayals of these elements in other fantasy media, ReZero actually goes a step further with the justification of how they function. For example, fire magic doesn't explicitly grant people the ability to control fire. Rather, it's more akin to temperature manipulation or energy control, so it stands to reason that if you release enough energy, you can release fire attacks like Goa and its subsequent iterations. But if you lower the temperature of something or utilize negative energy, you are then able to create ice magic as well using the fire element. That's why Puck is able to conjure ice magic despite being known as the Great Spirit of Fire. As for water magic, it's pretty much related to the concept of life and is commonly used for defensive or healing purposes such as humor, where users are able to create a shining water barrier that can block projectiles and magic. However, water magic does have offensive applications as well, but is often used in combination with fire magic to cast spells like El Humor, which allows the user to form and shoot multiple ice spears from their hands, or El Humor, where the user is able to create a 10-meter long spear of ice. And one of the craziest spells that someone proficient in water magic can use is called Sacrament of the Immortal King, which allows the user to reanimate the dead, but the target will lack the soul it once had since it has been taken into the recycling process of Old Laguna. Additionally, this spell has apparently been lost to time, with only an incomplete version that still exists, which has been closely passed down through the generations within the Argyle house, meaning that Ferrus Argyle is capable of using this spell as well. Next we have Earth Magic, which is often meant to represent nature and the complex materials that come from it, so it's associated with matter manipulation. This also makes Earth Magic quite versatile. It's able to be used in either a defensive, offensive, or evasive setting, like Donna, El Donna, U Donna, or El Donna, all with differing effects. There was even a duplication spell that allows the user to make a degraded copy of any item they want, and proficient users can create copies of living beings as well, but those are simply empty shells. Wind magic, on the other hand, is quite simple to understand. It's the control of external forces such as wind or air, and is often used as an offensive tool. Hurrah is the best example from this category, which allows the user to fire numerous wind blades at high velocity, and with the addition of the 3 prefixes, the intensity of the spell will be greater. And highly talented mages can even manipulate the flow of air surrounding them while pairing with the other elements to float in the air or achieve flight. Then there's yin magic, and even though it's often depicted to be something along the lines of dark or shadow magic in other media, but in the rezero world it's more akin to debuff and distortion magic, such as the base version of Shamak, which only hinders the senses of the target, although for higher grade versions of the spell like El Shamak, it can even imprison targets inside an alternate dimension. That's why some have even argued that yin magic can be classified as spatial magic as well, since Beatrice has been shown to utilize spells like her door crossing ability. Yin magic also offers offensive capabilities, as seen in the Minya line of spells that both Subaru and Beatrice used back in Season 2. Lastly, the final element is Yang magic, and there isn't much information on it, aside from the fact that it's considered to be the exact opposite of Yin magic, meaning it provides buff and other reinforcement magic to the user along with the targets, although it could have some association with light as well, since it can also be used offensively through the Jiwok spell line, and it essentially allows the user to fire heat or light rays from their fingers. Furthermore, it seems that Yang magic to some extent is capable of repairing or restoring items and people to their original state, so technically it can be counted as a form of healing magic as well. Having explained that, aside from elemental magic, there's also a subcategory of magic that can be used by mages and spirit art users known as curses, which is a power that specializes in causing harm onto a target. However, as of April 2024, the author has since clarified that curses no longer fall under the category of magic. Rather, it's called cursecraft and is meant to mimic the authorities granted by witch factors, but because it's impossible to artificially recreate them in the rezero world, it's actually unknown how curses first came to exist and its relation to authorities. Although according to Beatrice, curses might have originated from the kingdom of Gutsako, or at least the majority of curse users seems to come from there. Regardless, as for how curses work, in order to activate their effect, there are seemingly 2 methods, either having the caster be in direct physical contact with their targets, or by carving a curse mark on the target and then setting the conditions for activation, such as the Wolgam curse being one of the earliest depictions of curses in the anime, as it was applied onto Subaru through the bite of a Wolgam, and it basically causes the target to grow weaker while draining their mana to feed the Wolgam no matter the range, ultimately leading to the user's death. Another good example of a curse being shown in anime is the Oath Curse Mark, which was used by Rosewall to guarantee its cooperation with Subaru. And this curse will bind the target's soul, forcing them to comply with whatever promise they have made. And if the oath is broken, the target is said to be engulfed by purifying flames that will scorch not only their body but taint their soul as well, never allowing it to return to Old Laguna. Also, this was never explicitly mentioned in anime, but Elsa was actually a product of cursed magic as well, and she was known as a cursed doll. And to explain what it is, to first create a cursed doll, the caster has to carve a curse mark onto someone, and within that curse mark lies the information of someone the caster wishes to kill, which causes the doll they created to then hunt the target down. And during this period, the cursed doll is granted powerful regeneration abilities, although at the cost of the doll losing their sense of self, unable to do anything else aside from wanting to kill the intended target. And once they successfully completed their mission, the doll will perish. However, someone named Holoseo Featherrun was able to discover a process whereby he could create cursed dolls that retain their sense of self, but having none of the regeneration abilities or immortality. So to rectify this inherent flaw, the dolls he created simply had to kill each other, which in turn increases their power until they become a perfected cursed doll. And this was the exact process that was used on Elsa, but because she chose to spare another cursed doll named Onea Featherrun in the past, she never became a perfect cursed doll and only had improved regeneration abilities. That's why Garfield was able to kill her. Examples aside, curses aren't always reliable because if they are discovered early on and the effect still hasn't been triggered, you could remove the curse, although it has to be performed by highly skilled mages or getting help from powerful spirits like Beatrice or Park. However, it does depend on the number of curses afflicted upon the target, because if there are too many, it will become harder for the mage or spirit since the layers will be far too complex to untangle. But in those cases, the best method is to simply eliminate the source of the curse, similar to what Subaru did against the Volgam. With that covered, I wanted to talk about a few miscellaneous aspects that are related to the magic system of rezero as well, like lagmites, also known as magic stones, naturally occurring crystals formed from atmospheric mana that's condensed into a solid state, and similar to mana taken in by living beings, magic stones will manifest an elemental attribute once it forms. However, magic stones have to first be processed before use because in a raw crystal state, they can be highly volatile. And regarding what magic stones can do, they serve a more practical function in society as compared to typical magic. For instance, fire stones can be used for cooking, heating or lighting lamps. Water stones and wind stones pretty much provide what their names entail, while earth stones are capable of not only strengthening objects or structures, it can even be used in agriculture as fertilizers. Yin or yang magic stones on the other hand don't retain any of its usual attributes, so they are simply used as batteries for meteor devices. More about them soon. So continuing on, because magic stones are made from mana, this meant that anyone with a gate, be it functioning or defective, can essentially use them without issue, and they don't even need to understand magic to fully make use of them. Additionally, there's a high grade of lagmite called glintstones, which are extremely rare because they only form in places with high concentrations of mana, and magic stones made from them can even be used to store a person's soul or a fragment of their old, but it's more commonly used as a housing for spirits or portable storage device for complex magical incantations or spells. But other than magic stones, there were also magical devices known as Meteors or Meteors that can allow people to use magic without the need of their gate or knowledge on spellcasting, although it's unknown how they were first created, because knowledge on their creation seems to have been lost to time, with Echidna being the only known individual who has demonstrated the ability to create meteors. It was for this reason meteors are highly sought after by nobles and collectors because of their rarity. That's why Subaru was able to leverage his phone in Season 1 against Russelfeller and Krushkasten. As for examples of meteors, there's the conversation mirror, which allows the user to communicate with others over long or short distances similar to a cell phone, and this was one of the meteors that were created by Echidna. And because the method for reproduction is generally known by the public, this is the most common and easiest type of meteor that one can obtain. In addition to this, we have the broadcast meteor, a device set to resemble a pipe organ, and much like the name implies, it allows the user to enhance the volume of their voice and broadcast the sound waves across a large area. And this meteor will be introduced in Season 3 when Subaru and gang visited the city of Pristella. Also, another meteor introduced during their visit was a control tower. Buildings located on the 4 cardinal directions of the city which are fitted with meteors that help to regulate the amount and flow rate of water within the city, along with helping to control the water gates. And one last example I want to give is a fairly unique meteor found in the light novel called Moguro Hagane, but what made this special was the fact that it's a sentient meteor, and its original purpose was to serve as the magic core of the Crystal Palace located in the imperial capital of Lupugana, but due to the high density of mana, the magic core will gain a spirit, making it a living meteor. That said, there was also something known as magic creation tools, a term used to describe any devices made through magical means, and they can be considered as a subcategory of meteors. They were originally invented by Roswell K, and the difference they had from normal meteors were mainly their purpose, along with the fact that they can be produced through normal means. And the main function of magic creation tools was simply to help improve people's quality of life, like say water heaters, lighting fixtures, or even manufacturing machines. But yeah, I think I have managed to at least cover the fundamentals of the magic system in rezero, like oaths, gates, and mana itself, along with aspects such as how mana is used to cast magic, the type of magic affinities, their users, and other miscellaneous things as well. Of course, there were some topics that I have yet to mention, although I do hope that my video has managed to help you understand how complex the world building and lore of the rezero world actually is. And if you want to see me cover other topics from rezero, like the witch cult, authorities, divine protection, or even character breakdowns, let me know in the comments down below. Overall, what are your thoughts on rezero? And did I miss anything important in regards to my lore breakdown of the power system? Feel free to share your thoughts down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button for more videos as well. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.